This is Gemara Menachos, Daf Chaf Zayin, and today's Daf, the Daf for Chaf Teves, has been generously sponsored by a close friend of the Daf, as Eschos Aliyah Neshama, for his father Yosef ben Nachman Chaim Alevi, whose yard site is on Chaf Teves, B'siyata Dishmaya, the incredible Schosim of Talmud Torah B'Rabim, should elevate his Heilig Neshama on his yard site higher and higher in Gan Eden Shalmaila, closer to the Kisei HaKavod, and ultimately, Yosef ben Nachman Chaim Alevi should be a Militz Yashar for its entire Mishpacha and the entire Chabura. We're holding on, Chavavim and Beis. We're about 6 lines from the bottom, 3 lines from the wide lines. We have one last little Gemara before the 2 dots. Not before the wide lines, before the 2 dots. Amar Ravasi, the first word line is Ketayres. Amar Ravasi, Bashin Rav Elazar, Menachos. When Rav Elazar was learning Menachos, Ba'i he asked the following Shaila. Ba'i Rav Elazar, to finger size. Kaimet shesidra v'sidra alavis ma'aracha ma'u. A kaimet that the kain put on the Mizbeach, and then they put the fire on top of the kemitza. Derech haktara b'kach? Oyein derech haktara b'kach? Is this the way of burning or not? Says the Gemara, Teiku. We're going to have to wait for Eliyahu Hanavi, Mashiach, to answer this kasha. The shaila is, when you generally, there's a fire and you put that which you're burning on top of the fire. Here he did the opposite. Is that considered the appropriate avodah? Is that considered derech haktara or not? And we answer up, Teiku. Continues the Gemara with a similar shaila regarding not a mincha but a karban by Chizkiah. The Torah says you put a carbon aleitim. So therefore, that shows us it has to be davka aleitim. I don't keep the cause of krachrina. It's another pasuk says the fire should consume al mizbeach. So maybe either way it works. And once again, says the Gemara, Heiku, we have to wait for Eliyahu Hanavi to be paishet the shaila. Says the Gemara with a third shaila for today. Boy, Rav Yitzchak Nafcha, 2 lines on the bottom. Eivarim shesidram b'sidei amaracha. You place the limbs on the side of the amaracha. Again, the maracha is the pyre, P-Y-R-E, the fire on top of the mizbeach. So you arrange the limbs on the top of the mizbeach. Mao. According to the mandamar that learns that al, when the Torah says it has to be placed on, that's literally loiti b'leilacha. There's no shaila. Why not? As we turn over to Chav Zayin Amud Aleph, because the pasuk says the al eitzim katsev. It says on the eitzim, and therefore, if you learn that al has to be taken literally, therefore, literally it says al, and therefore it would have to be on, and there would be no shaila what the status is if it's placed al sidei next to. Kit b'aylecha, what's the shaila? Lieb demand damar al b'samoch. According to the mandamar that says al could be next to my hachinami al, when the Torah says al ha'eitzim kami b'samoch. Or maybe when the Torah says al ha'eitzim, that's more of a connotation that it's like al mizbeach, and therefore ma'asam al, the word has to mean mamish. Can be next to the mizbeach, of course. Avachanami al has to be mamish. So those are the 2 sides of the shaila. How do we deal with the al? Says the Gemara for the 3rd time for the day. Teiku. We continue with a Mishnah. A Mishnah that brings us into a new topic that's going to really be our focal point of discussion for the duration of this parak and the next parak. As we're going to see, we're going to be a little more broad regarding whether mitzvahs are ma'akiv other parts of the mitzvah. Anytime a mitzvah has multiple components, is lacking in one component, negate and disallow another part of the mitzvah to be done. We're going to start the discussion, Menachos, about the kemitza, about the carbon mincha, and then it will go weiter. So says the Mishnah, Ha-koimetz mi'atoi ma'akev esrubai. If the kaimetz, the smaller part, is essential to the larger part, Isaroin, regarding the Isaron of flour, Miate Makives Rubai, the smaller part is essential. Hayayin Miate Makives Rubai, Hashem Miate Makives Rubai. As so as Hashem Makvin says, Hakaimitz Alvaina, Makvin says, so teaches the Mishnah that all the different components, all the different components of the carbon mincha are essential, that even, or particularly the smaller part, and as much as they're not as numerous and as large as the larger part, they're still ma'akev, and they still hold back the other parts of the carbon. So says the Gemara, my time, what is the reason for this? What is the reason that the kaimetz, the miatoi, the smaller part of the kaimetz is even ma'akev, the larger part of the carbon? Amar Kra, says the Torah, Meloikum Sai Trezimni, says it 2 times to show us that each and every part of the kemitza, both the larger part and even the smaller part, both of them are integral. Isarain miatoy makiv esru by my time anachamol amar Kra misaltam. Says the pasuk, from its flying flower, Shimchaser Kol Sho Psula, that if anything is lacking, is going to be puzzle. So that's the first 2 cases in the Mishnah. Hashem, and the third case, Hayayin, Ma'atoi, Ma'akev Esrubai, Kacha, says the Gemara, because we learn it from the word kacha. Hashem and me'atoyes, meaning it has to be like this, that each part is integral. Hashem ma'akeres yubai de minchas nesachim, because by minchas nesachim it says kacha. O minchas nedava amar kra o mishamna. Shemchas kol shu psula. Hashem and vasailes ma'akvin zeh misalto mishamna, migirsho mishamna. So says the Gemara, numerous drashos, numerous psukim, which teach us that each and every component is integral. Before we go weiter, let's go back to the Mishnah, the Rashi on the Mishnah. Rashi on the Mishnah said, "Miatoy makiv esrubai shemchasar kol shu pasel." Says Rashi that if you're lacking at all, it's going to be pasel. Hayayin, one more Rashi. Hashlish is ayin shel ayil arvius in like kavis achatzi ayin lepar v'chinshemen bin minchas nesachim kishir ayin beimlug d'minchas netavas. So we want to portray all the different parts of the carbon, that we see that if any little bit is lacking, even in the miatai, the carbon is not going to be valid. And we continue now, and really, as we mentioned, this Mishnah is a springboard to dive into this larger discussion of different components of the carbon, how they relate to each other. So now says the Mishnah, the second Mishnah on this Amud, going into other carbonis. Shnei Seirei Yom Kippurim Makvin Zazah. The 2 Seirim of Yom Kippur are makiv each other. Shnei Kisvei Aseres Makvin Zazah. Beis Chalois, the 2 Chalois of the Lechem Aponim, the Beis Chalois of Shavuos, that's what the Shnei Seirim, Makvei Zazah, Shnei Sadarim, there it is, that's Lechem Aponim, the 2 arrangements are Makvin Zazah, Shnei Bezichen, the 2 spoonfuls of frankincense with the Lechem Aponim, Makvei Zazah, Hasadarim Vabezichen, the arrangements of the Lechem Aponim, and the Bezichen, and the spoonfuls of Bazichen are Makvin as Shnei Minei Sheben Nazir, the 2 types of bread with the carbon Nazir, Gimel, the 3 types of Sheba para, the three parts of the para aduma. Vidalit sheba taira, taida, the four breads of the carbon taida. Vidalit sheba lulav. And now, as you see, we're sort of pivoting. And we started with Menachos, Kemitza, Levinas, Isarin, and the like. We continue with other karbanos. Shtei Sirim, the Lechma Panim, the Shtei Chalois. And now the Mishnah continues into other mitzvahs. The Dalit Sheba Lulav, the Dalit Minim, are as well. Makvin Zezeh, Va'arba Sheba Mitzayra, Makvin Zezeh, Shiva Hazois, Sheba Para, the 7 sprinklings. This is Yom Kippur fame. It's not Yom Kippur fame. This is the Shiva Kvasais of the Para Hazayos, of the Para Adumar, Makvin Zezeh, Zayin Hazayos, the 7, I lost my place, 7 sprinklings, Sha'al bin Abadin, that's on the Yom Kippur, Shala Pareicha, Shal Mizbeach Hazav, Ma'akvai Zuezu. So a whole long list of different karbanos, different components of karbanos, which each and every chelek, each and every part is ma'akev, it holds back, is essential to other parts of the karban. So says the Gemara, Shnei Siri Yom Kippurim Akviz Zeh. Where do we know that from? Chuka, the Torah says the Chayk. Shnei Kifsei Haseres Akviz Zeh. Why? Because Havaya, the pasuk says it's being, it has to fully be. Shnei Chalos Havaya. Shnei Sadarim Chuka, Shnei Bezicha v'Chuka, Sadarim v'Bezicha Chuka, Shnei Minim Shabanazir D'chsev Kein Yaseh. So the first few in the Mishnah were because it says Chuka or Havaya. It is what it is. Now we go on by the Nazir, because it says Kein Yaseh. Kimel Shabbat Haram. It says Chuka. Arba Shabbat Taida, Diskish Nazir, D'chsev al Zevach Taida Shlam. V'amar Mar Shamim l'Rabbi Shalmi Nazir. Arba Shem Mitzayra D'chsev Zois Tiyater Zam Mitzayra. V'tal Sheba Lulav L'Kachtem. A Josh that we learned to the Gemara in Sukkah. Then what do we learn now from the L'Kachtem? Now what? L'Kichatama. To be complete taking. Amar Rav Chanan bar Rava. Loi Shanu L'Shein Loi. Says Rav Chanan bar Rava. This is only if they're essential when he does not have all dalit. If he has all 4, even if he didn't take them all together, it is not ma'akiv. And this goes back to a larger machlokes, whether you have to actually take them all together. And we have a sheet over here, Manda Amar, which I don't think even exists in Gemara and Sukkah, which teaches us that once you have all 4, that's going to suffice, even if you don't take all 4 together. Frakti Gemara may say 2 lines from the medium-sized lines. Dalin Mina Shabalula Vemeam Oisin Peirais. Says the Brisa, 2 of them bear fruit. Shnaim Memein Oisin Peirais. Oisin Peirais, he has a cookie. L'shein Oisin Peirais, the one that's produced fruit, is zakok to those that don't produce fruit. Vein adam yaitzi yedeicha v'asay behen ad. Says the Raisa explicitly, you're not yaitzi the dalin minim until what? Like we all know, kulam bagudachas. So the Gemara is bothered. You just told me a shita that holds that the dalin minim Vibalt calls man, you have all daled minim, you don't have to take them all together. Says the Gemara, but we see that's not true. And the Brisa continues. Similarly, Yisrael B'Hartzah, that what? If a Yid wants to know why he's not answered from a Kadosh Baruch Hu, Achikulam Aguda Achad Shnemar Aboyne B'Shamayim Mal Yosef Agudasai Al Eretz Yisada. So I asked the Gemara, how could you suggest you don't need actually all daled minim? Responds the Gemara on the 4th medium-sized line. Tanaihi. Titanya, this machlokes we certainly add in Gemara and Sukkah. Lulav, as it pertains to lulav bein agud bein sheino yagud. Kosher. A lulav, whether it's bound or not, is kosher. Rav Yudai Mer. Agud kosher. B'sheino yagud. Pasul. Rabbi Yehuda says if it's bound, it's kosher. If it's not bound, it's basal. So Rachanan bar Rava that says it doesn't have to be tied together. It's like Shittas Rabbi Yehuda. My time with Rabbi Yehuda, Gomer Kicha Kicha, Me'aguda Seizayf, Ma'alhalan Ba'aguda, Avkam Ba'aguda, V'Rabbanon, Lo Gomer Kicha Kicha. Kemanazah. Says the Gemara, once we're in Sukkah world, let's go a little bit weiter. Who is the following Tanya? The Tanya Lula Mitzvah Igdavim La'agda Kasher. These are Gemaras, explicit Gemaras we had in Sukkah that is a mitzvah to bind it. But if you did it, b'diavad, it's kosher. Frank the Gemara, who is this? Come on. Iker Rav Yehuda, lo yagto yamai kosher. Rav Yehuda holds that all good, the binding is integral. If not, why would it be kosher? Rabbanan my mitzvah. What's the mitzvah to lechatchila? Says the Gemara, Chedesh, which redefines the mitzvah of Aguda. La'ilam Rabbanan. My mitzvah, what does it mean? That according to the Rabbanan, there's a mitzvah like dai. It's not a mitzvah integral, intrinsic to lulav, but rather misham zakeli vanveu. There's a mitzvah to beautify all mitzvahs, and therefore the global din of zakeli that says, according to the Chachamim, that you should bind the dal and minim together. And we continue. We're on the first very wide line at the bottom of Chav Zayin Amud Aleph, continuing quoting the Mishnah Sheva Azay Sheba Para. Why? Because it says Chuka. Shavazay shall bin abayin v'shal mezbeach azav shall baruch mak v'zu the Yom Kippurim ksev Chuka. The Barkoi Mashuach Baralam Davar shall tibur d'yisir avodas chavim. In all of those cases, what's the source? Kedetanya v'asal apar k'shasal apar matam lermer. What does it say? Lichbol ba'azayis, to double the azayis that what? Shem chaser achas meyan min amatana lo asa klum. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabban, on the second line of Chav Zayin Amud Bey, Sheva Zayu Sheva Para, the 7 sprinklings of the Para Aduma Shasa on Bein Shaloi Lishman, Bein Shaloi Mechuva Nois, whether they were done without being Lishma, whether they were done on Mechuvan, directed towards the Pesach HaEichel, like they have to be, Psulois, the Shebifnim, and the sprinklings that are done Bifnim, Shebif Mitzayra, Shalei Lishmam are Psulois, but Shalei Mechuvanois are going to be kosher. So there's a nuance of a chilik, between the Azayas of the Para Aduma and the Azayas of the Mitzayra, and that which is done Bifnim. As the Gemara of Tanya Gabi Para, we see Mamish Vakert, Klape, the Para Aduma, Shalei Lishmam Psulois, Shebif Mechuvanois Ksheires. Amar Rav Chisda, Loi Kasha, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbanan, 2 different shitais. One of these 2 shitais, Titania, as we learned in a brayso, Mechosri Kapara, Shenichnasu LaAzara, someone that is lacking in a Kapara who went and entered the Azara of the Beis HaMikdash, B'shagi is Chayiv Chatas, B'meizid is Einish Karis. V'in Sarach Loimar, Tful Yoim, V'shar Kol HaTameim, a Tful Yoim, and any all the Tameim are also required to bring a Chatas in a case that someone went in, B'shagig, in the Chatzar, that they'd be Chayiv Karis if it was B'meizid. Continues the Braisa of Utahirim, and those are Utar, the Shisas, Shenichnasu Lefnim Mimichitzasam, who go beyond their boundaries, Heichal Kulai, anywhere into the entire Heichal, Bar Bayim, they get Malchus. Mi Beis HaBaroiches. Continues the Psukim Al Panei HaKabayris, they get Misa. So different areas that if one enters the wrong area that they're not supposed to be, the punishments that they're Chayiv. Rav Yehuda Imer, says Rav Yehuda, Kol Eichal Kulai Mi Beis HaBaroiches Bar Bayim, V'Panei HaKabayris B'Misa. So says the Gemara, what exactly is this machlokes? B'mai kamiflagi. Says the Gemara, b'haikra, with the following passages of Yemar Hashem el Moshe daber el Aharon achicha, v'al yavoi b'chol eisel hakodesh, mi beis habaroiches, al b'nei hakapayres, asher el Aharon, v'lo yamos. Rabbanan savri el hakodesh lo yavoi, mi beis habaroiches, v'al b'nei hakapayres, is b'lo yamos. That's how they darshan the pasuk according to the Chachamim. Rabbi Yehuda Imer Sava, Rabbi Yehuda holds that like Kodesh Misa Baroiches is B'lo Yavai, Val B'nei HaKapayra is B'lo Yamas. So two different ways of darshing up the same pasuk. So now says the Gemara, my taima de Rabbanan. What is the reason of the Rabbanan? Said the Rabbanan. So then you know what the pasuk should have said? The Tazi didn't have to say and I would have known on my own. And I would know on my own that the Heichal, if we're going to the Heichal, one is Chayiv. Mi beis labareiches, mi bai, it would be Bashit. Because, excuse me. Ana amina Heichal mechayiv, mi beis labareiches, mi bai. Different gearsais over here, it gets a little bit confusing. Mi beis labareiches, the cause of Rachmana, lamali. Shema Mina, so say the Chachamim here, we learn out, this is why they say there's going to be Misa. So again, it's a little bit complicated. We have one pasuk, each one is schlepping the pasuk to show the Mashmayis his way. For Rav Yehuda, how does Rav Yehuda respond? Ikasav ala kodesh, v'lo ikasav mi beis labareiches, hava mina ma kodesh beis labareiches, aval heichal, lav, aval heichal, lav nami loi. There would not even be a lav. And that's why the Torah had to say, mi beis labareiches. So that's how Rav Yehuda darshes the pasuk. V'Rabbanan, ahulam Rabbanan, I would never have thought that. Dechol kulei krei kodesh. Shenemar of the labareiches lochem ben hakodesh ben kodesh hakodesh. Rav Yehuda my time. So now the Gemara goes the other way. So where does Rav Yehuda? That was how Rav Yehuda responded. But how lemaisa? What does Rav Yehuda hold? Kamri Rabbanan lechrachman ala kodesh ben labareiches. V'loi bai abnei kabayres. V'na amina ben labareiches v'misa abnei kabayres v'bai. Abnei kabayres because Rachman alamali. Shema amina says Rav Yehuda abnei kabayres v'misa ben labareiches be'az hara. Now how did the Rabbanan respond? The Rabbanan hachinami d'loi tzarich. Rabbanan say it's true. The pasuk doesn't need to say this. Because Rachman el pnei kabayres. Because Rachman al pnei kabayres is why the meutei derech mishupash. A new din say the Chachamim. You know why the pasuk says these extra words? To teach us that if you enter in derech mishupash, you entered into an abnormal way. Let's say you went into Kodesh HaKodashim, you went a tunnel underneath or something like that. Would you be chayiv? Kedetani dvei Rav Elazar ben Yaakov ben Ekabaritz Keidma Zebon Haav Kol Makom Shenemar Pinei Ein Ayelo Pinei Kadim. What does Pinei mean? It means entering in on the eastern way. So when the Torah adds on El Pinei HaKabayres, it shows us that it's only if you're entering into a normal way and not if you're entering in derech pishpish. Rav Yehuda, how does he respond? Lema kra penei, my el penei, the actual word, shmamina, el davka. That's what we learned it out. Rabbanan, el lav davka. They don't learn out from the word el. Says the Gemara. Let's stop over here. Says is how each one has his makar. Now the Gemara is going to continue, and the Gemara is going to go a little bit deeper and show that the two brises at some level are steers, are contradictory to each other. We'll pick it up from here, b'siyata dishmaya.